The problem of evil. If a benevolent God exists, why does suffering and evil persist? If God is all-loving and all-powerful, then why does evil exist? This question has haunted humanity for thousands of years. Natural disasters, diseases, and injustice. Why do these things happen if there's a God who cares? And if he has the power to stop suffering, then why doesn't he? In today's video, we're diving deep into the problem of evil, one of the biggest mysteries in philosophy and religion. We'll look at different explanations, challenge them, and see if we can find a satisfying answer. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Let's get started. What do we mean by evil? Before we can answer this question, we need to understand what evil actually means. Philosophers usually divide it into two categories: moral evil, evil caused by humans. Think of murder, war, lying, greed, oppression, anything bad that people choose to do. Natural evil, evil that happens without human choice, like earthquakes, floods, diseases, and birth defects. Moral evil makes sense in a way people have free will, and some choose to do wrong. But what about natural evil? Why would an all-powerful and loving God allow things like cancer or tsunamis? That's where things get tricky. Epicurus asked this 2,000 years ago. The Greek philosopher Epicurus was one of the first people to seriously challenge the idea of a loving God in a world full of suffering. He asked, if God wants to stop evil but can't, he is not all-powerful. If he can stop evil but doesn't want to, he is not all good. If he is both able and willing, then why does evil exist? This became known as the logical problem of evil, and it's still debated today. Think about it. If you saw someone drowning and had the ability to save them, wouldn't you do it? Now imagine someone with infinite power, shouldn't they stop all suffering? So, does this mean God doesn't exist? Or is there another explanation? Let's look at some possible answers. Theodicies? Do these explanations work? A theodicy is an attempt to justify the existence of evil in a world created by a good God. People have been trying to solve this puzzle for centuries. Here are some of the most famous explanations. Free will. Is it our fault? One of the most common answers is, God gave us free will. Some people choose to do evil. That's not his fault. Makes sense, right? If God forced us to be good, we wouldn't be truly free. Free will means we can choose between right and wrong. St. Augustine argued that evil isn't something God created. It's just the absence of good. Like how darkness is just the absence of light. The problem? This only explains moral evil. What about natural evil? No one chooses to be hit by a hurricane or born with a disease. Suffering helps us grow. Another idea is that suffering actually has a purpose. John Hick, a modern philosopher, believed that pain helps us develop virtues like patience, courage, and empathy. If life were perfect, we'd never learn anything or grow as human beings. Think about it. If you never faced failure, would you ever learn resilience? If you never got sick, would you appreciate health? If there was no injustice, would we ever fight for change? Sounds deep, right? The problem? Does extreme suffering really help us grow? Does a child dying from hunger really need to go through that just to teach others a lesson? That seems unfair. The greater good. Maybe we just don't see the big picture? What if suffering actually serves a purpose we just can't understand? Imagine this. A little kid is crying because they got a painful vaccine shot. They don't understand that the pain is actually protecting them from something worse. Some religious believers argue that human suffering works the same way. Maybe there's a bigger plan that we just don't have the ability to see. Maybe suffering leads to something better in the grand scheme of things. The problem? This raises a huge moral question. Does that make it okay? Does any amount of greater good justify innocent people suffering? Fyodor Dostoevsky, the famous Russian writer, said something powerful about this. In The Brothers Karamazov, he wrote that even if suffering somehow led to a better world, it would never justify the suffering of even one innocent child. Do you agree? A test from God? Some religious traditions believe that suffering is a test of faith. The Bible tells the story of Job, a man who lost everything, his family, his health, his wealth, but stayed faithful to God. In the end, he was rewarded. Some people believe suffering happens to strengthen faith. It's a way to test who truly believes and who doesn't. The problem? What about people who suffer their whole lives with no reward? What about children who die young? If suffering is a test, isn't it unfair that some people get much harder tests than others? So, what's the truth? At the end of the day, we don't have a perfect answer. This question has been debated for thousands of years, and people still don't agree. Some believe suffering proves that God doesn't exist. Others believe it's all part of a plan we can't understand. Some think God allows suffering so we can have free will, grow as humans, or be tested. But here's what we do know. This question isn't going away anytime soon. What do you think? So now, it's over to you. Do you think suffering has a purpose? Do you believe in free will, or does natural evil make that explanation impossible? Does the idea of a greater good make sense to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep discussions. See you in the next one.